You're listening to Across the Pondcast. Cybersecurity rants and war stories from both sides of the Atlantic.
Hello and welcome to Across the Pondcast, a show where we talk and occasionally rant about cybersecurity topics with perspectives from both sides of the Atlantic. I am Tib3rius. I'm joined, as always, by my AI-powered co-host, Mr. Andy Swift. Andy, how have you been?
I'm very good, thank you, Doodle Peach. AI-powered. Yeah, am I here? Am I not here? Who knows? Have I been created the other day? Do I have 20 fingers?
You've been an LLM this entire time.
Yeah, exactly that. It's just text-to-speech. You've basically just written this entire script, which is why I agree with you so many times, I imagine.
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly that. Well, let's crack on with it. Fun times ahead.
Yes, and the title of today's episode is the one where they talk about AI again. We didn't cover everything in our previous AI episode, and let's face it, this probably isn't going to be the last time we talk about AI either. But here we go. We have more opinions, right, Swift?
More opinions. I think we should probably move this like a regular thing, because this landscape changes literally on a monthly basis on how people are using it. So like stuff we said last time is probably already out of date. So
yep.
Here we go.
Excellent. Before we start, this show is made possible thanks to our sponsors. If you want to sponsor an episode, please send an email to sponsors@acrossthepodcast.net for more details. I wanted to start off because we were talking about this before we started. I feel like I say that a lot. Maybe you're right, Swift. I should just hit record as soon as you join the call.
Yes.
We were talking about this before we started recording. ChatGPT has basically replaced Google for about 90% of my searches. And it's done it remarkably quickly. And let me preface, because I'm sure there'll be a lot of people listening who are like screaming internally. When I say that, I don't mean I just ask ChatGPT a question, it gives me the answer, and I just immediately believe it. That's not what I mean. Let me make sure we're all on the same page. Because that's not how I use Google, right? When I use Google, I still use Google. And, technically I use DuckDuckGo as well, but sometimes DuckDuckGo doesn't work as well as Google. When I use Google, I'll search for what I want, and obviously I'll click through links and I'll find articles that I think are accurate and read them, and I'll often try and correlate them with other articles to make sure that, there's some broad agreement. That's what I will do. And I do kind of the same thing with ChatGPT, right? So you can ask ChatGPT to search something, or you can ask it a general question, and it will come up with sources that you can click through to. And I think that's just honestly where it excels is it's doing the same thing that you are doing potentially when you're using Google, which is it's searching and then clicking through articles in the results, reading them, and selecting what it thinks is are the best ones. But you still got to go and actually click on the links. You shouldn't just believe ChatGPT. You should definitely click on the links it gives you as sources and sort of make sure it's not just making stuff up. Because it can make stuff up. It absolutely 100% still makes stuff up. But for a lot of stuff, especially code-related questions or questions I have about technology, weird stuff I'm seeing in my day-to-day, like, it's really good at just finding information about that.
Yeah. Someone described it not so long ago to me as like having a really nice best friend who's just very knowledgeable about loads of stuff. But do you believe them 100% about everything that comes out of their mouth? Maybe not. Maybe you have to fact check a few things, but they're certainly knowledgeable enough to knock you onto the right path a little bit. So I was having a lovely conversation with ChatGPT the other day when I was out walking my dog. I should point out I live in the middle of the countryside, and there's nothing but fields around me. So it's not like I was walking through a town centre.
Can confirm.
Yeah. It's not like I was walking through the middle of town looking like an idiot, just talking to myself. But I was having a lovely chat with it with my headphones on. And it's about, so I've mentioned a few times I do lots of game development stuff on the side. It's not my forte. It's not my go-to. It's not what I was trained to do. It's not what I grew up doing. It's not even my sort of typical go-to type of programming. So it's new to me.
But let's face it, programming in general isn't your forte, Swift.
Yep. Yeah, no, I would go with that. Yeah, pretty much. I got a little bit better to my defense over the years, but no, it's never where I grew up doing it. I never came from a programming background to come into pen testing. Came from a forensics background, but it's anyway. What's talking about games? Yeah, so very different type of programming, and I have so many questions, very basic questions. They're not like advanced questions. They're quite basic ones, like how do I do this particular thing within this particular engine? Where's the button for this? What part do I call to do this particular thing? They're just very basic questions that are not really advanced programming questions. They're more just I don't know my way around this framework yet. Can you please point me in the right direction? It's really good for stuff like that, I found. And rarely gets it wrong.
Also, I presume, how many for loops can I embed before the program gets too slow?
Yeah. So it's told me to go away at that point. It's a stupid fool.
Fool of a Swift.
But then there are times when you ask it slightly more complicated questions about things, and it goes, "Oh yeah, just use this function," and then you'll go to look at the function or look it up, and it's like it doesn't actually exist. You literally just made up an entire function you think might be useful. And then I go and use it. It's like, why can't I find this? And you spend like 10, 20 minutes going, that's some trick here. There's something I'm missing. And then, wait, it doesn't actually exist in like this framework's documentation anywhere. So, yeah, a bit of a mishmash, but it's replaced Google for me for a lot of stuff as well, I think, in a similar sort of way. Still needs fact checking. But yeah, for a number of things,
does.
Very useful.
Especially with coding as well, it's kind of interesting because I've seen it try to. I think the issue is when the LLM isn't trained on recent data, it kind of shows. And this actually leads nicely into what I wanted to talk about next, which was vibe coding. And so firstly, the definition of vibe coding, I believe, the original one anyway, was basically just using an LLM to code without actually knowing how to code yourself. That, I think, should be the case. But I understand vibe coding has kind of evolved a bit, and now it's kind of just a loose term for any time you use AI to sort of help you code something. I don't think that's necessarily accurate. I prefer it as, AI-assisted coding is what I generally do. So I will use AI to help me code. And one thing I've noticed especially is it loves using deprecated features of libraries. So there's SQL Alchemy, I believe, is the Python library for sort of doing ORM stuff with SQL. There's like a regular just get function. So if you have a table like called projects, you can do projects.get and pass it an ID, and it will get a project with that ID. That's a deprecated function. It still works, but it's basically, so I guess it's not deprecated. It's listed deprecated. It will spit out an error saying it's deprecated, but it still technically works because the function that replaced it was, I believe, get or 404, right? So it triggers a 404 if you pass it the wrong ID, like an ID that doesn't exist. And I believe there's like a session handling version as well. But yeah, but here's the thing, like when I ask the AI to write code, there's like a 50-50 chance it'll use the actual get or 404 function. And then there's, the same chance it'll just use get. I don't know what in it is tripping it up, but it will sometimes code it correctly. And then other times it will just not. And it's just kind of frustrating because then it's like, why are all these errors happening in, the Python log? Oh, it's because it's decided to use an old function for absolutely no reason. Like sometimes in the same code block for like a function that I've defined, it will use the get or 404 and another get somewhere, and it'll be like, but why? Why did you do that? You knew what you were doing over here. And I think that just kind of echoes back to the non-deterministic nature, of LLMs in general, is that, if you ask it to write the same code twice, it's going to do it in two different ways.
Yes.
A lot of the time, which is kind of crazy, but also it sort of kind of works because if you ask two different developers to write the same code, they're probably going to write it in different ways anyway. So, yeah.
Yeah.
But vibe coding does work, kind of. And yeah, I have vibe coded a few things, and I feel like there is a degree of luck involved in how much you actually have to prompt the AI to actually get what you want. But overall, it is getting better for sure.
So yeah, I'm convinced they have a built-in like luck generator, which is basically determines how much luck you're going to get today and how useful it's going to be. So I've had, for example, stuff where I've been working in PHP and exactly that, it's giving you deprecated functions. And then you literally sit there and you ask it and you go, that's a deprecated function. Why have you used that? And it's gone, oh yeah, so it is. Here's the code again, but without that. And you're like, just do that in the first place. Like, why are you giving me old stuff I can't use for more than like a couple of months now before it falls apart? So yeah, seen that a lot. The other interesting thing that you said about the never code the same thing in two ways, that's also another point we'll probably swing back to a little bit later on when we start talking about its use cases in malware and things like that, because there have been proof of concepts over the years, and more importantly, more recently, some malware been sneaking its way around that's been using that little feature of not doing stuff the same way twice. You can probably guess where that's going from here. As an actual
polymorphism, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. It's a nice little quirk. But yeah, it turns out quite useful if you're a malware author. But yeah, we'll get around to that again in a minute. But yeah, I absolutely agree. The other nice thing I think it has done, and we did touch on this in the previous one, but I guess I see this as like an update. There's quite a few people I know, not just in my team, outside of my team as well, various Discord channels and such, people that are coding an awful lot more than they used to. And I say coding as in AI's enabled them to learn a lot quicker. And I'd not vibe code entire scripts of stuff, but it has at least helped accelerate their learning to a ridiculous point. Whether the understanding is entirely there underneath, I don't know. And I am kind of fearful that it's going to generate a wave of script kiddie stuff. That's my fear. So whenever I see a load of like commits to our GitLab server internally for all of our like internal tools and things, always kind of like, especially when it's from like a junior member of staff, always sort of go over and go, hey there, hey, what you doing there? Did you do this all yourself? Because it's very beautifully commented all the way throughout.
The code comments are pretty good. My worry is it's going to cause like potentially the next wave of developers to be all coding in a similar style, and that style might not be the best. Like it might not be the standard that tends to go around in terms of how to actually code. That could happen simply because AI, these LLMs are not necessarily trained on the best source code, right?
No.
So that has a potential.
It does, but also really efficient, beautifully structured code is kind of a rarity anyway, but for LLMs. Right? So, I mean, I'd probably say, given the amount of, I don't know, maybe you have a different view because you do a lot more web app and application type pen tests than I do. But my kind of view is there's a lot of sloppy code out there even before LLMs, and I don't know if LLMs are actually going to make it worse or just sort of carry on the same level of slop that's out there. Maybe accelerate the slop, I don't know. But I feel like the niche amount of really good, efficient, well-written code that is out there has always been a minority, and it probably will always be a minority for a little while anyway.
Yeah, no, that's fair. But it did remind me of something, though. While I will say that vibe coding, AI-assisted coding, whatever you want to call it, it does kind of work. There are definitely issues. Let's say that. I was using AI last night to help me code some stuff. And to give some context, this is a pretty big HTML app. It uses Flask. It uses a lot of JavaScript. There's just a huge like HTML template file that does a lot of stuff. And I gave the AI instructions. This is Copilot, I believe, actually. So, GitHub Copilot built into VS Code now. I told it like, okay, explain what the app did, because I'd coded a lot of this app myself. I told it what the app did, got it to analyze the code. It actually gave me a good, like, without being too descriptive, I was like, can you analyze the code and give me a breakdown of what you think it does, right? And it gave me a pretty good summary, which was nice. And then I'm like, okay, so can you add this feature? And I was like, certainly. And it goes away. and it adds the feature. Like I refreshed, I tested it, the feature worked. And I looked at the code that I was going to commit to my Git repo. And it had just completely deleted almost all of the JavaScript code for all the other functions. So like I could no longer click the edit button on stuff and have like a window pop up to edit things. Like it just deleted it all. And it's like, why? Like, you didn't need to do that. Like, I just asked you to add a feature. You're like, nah, what are all of these suspicious JavaScript functions doing? Yeah, I guess I'll just remove them. It's like, okay. And it's happened a few times, and I don't know if it's just Copilot. Like, I've coded with Cursor before, and Cursor doesn't seem to do that, but I imagine at some point it probably will. This just seems to be an odd thing, and I think that's where the luck comes in. Like, I see all these people claiming that they're like spending, that they have no dev experience and they're making these apps. And I'm like, okay, I mean, if it works, but at some point they're going to try and add a feature and it's just going to break most of their application, I fear.
Yeah.
But yeah, one thing I will say, it definitely can handle security features a little better than I expected. So I expected a lot more cross-site scripting errors, for example. And it pretty much handles cross-site scripting very well, as far as I can tell. There are definitely security errors in this code, and it's not code that's going to be like live in a production environment at any point. But here, like, that's the thing. It's if it does need to be code reviewed, great, I'll do a code review on it. But yeah, I think overall, it's just a bit. It's not perfect. It's nowhere close to being perfect, actually. It's not going to replace software devs anytime soon, just because it's so freaking random.
Yeah. And you see the adverts for like those website generators and things are like, oh yeah, just a few prompts here and you can make an entire application. And I know you look at the application afterwards, it's a bit they don't show you, and it's bloody awful in terms of like functionality. And then if you want to keep it in a little box, its own little working box, fine. But then as soon as you take something out and you want to add a function, you want to add something new to it, like 6 months down the line, a year down the line, that's where I find it tends to struggle, is when it's trying to piece together larger applications. So one of the projects I'm working on at the moment is a very large application, but it is so fragmented in terms of how the code fits together. You have to go back to certain bits every now and then, and like any LLM you use is just going to forget what you were doing before, not have the context, or like you said earlier, it's going to recode something in a totally different way. And you can always tell when you look at a whole project of code if an LLM has been used, because 9 times out of 10 parts of it will be done in a lot of the time you do things in a certain reusable way, right? You have a way of writing something, a way of writing a function, or your function does a particular thing and you're like, okay, that's great, I'll reuse that loads and loads of times. When you see like LLMs working on big projects, it's always like, okay, well, this function does the same thing as this function, and this one does the same thing as this one, and they're all named slightly different things, and they all do exactly the same thing. So yeah, it's not very good at like larger projects and reusage of stuff, I tend to find. And that's where I think your humans come in, just to kind of stitch it all together, I think. And that's not going away anytime soon, I don't think. There's still a place for humans that deeply understand code to sit down and pick apart, rehash. But yeah, it certainly speeds workflows up. I don't think it's a case of just letting it go and do its own thing for now. I don't think in bigger projects, or projects that are intended to last a long time, I don't think that's sensible. I don't think it's very helpful in those cases. But yeah, still, I use it every day.
Yeah, and my concern as well is if companies do start using like AI assisted coders, or even full AI to do software development completely, it does so depend on the model that you're using, that I'm worried that like you could start coding a project in one particular model, and then that model becomes too expensive for you, and you have to switch to another model. And that's going to become a huge issue, because I don't think from my, like, I've used Grok, for example, to create a base of code. And then I've put that into I've loaded that into Cursor and said, hey, can you add a feature to this and preserve it? And Cursor just went away and completely re-templated everything. So it was like, oh yeah, I'm going to change all the CSS. So this looks way better. Well, it doesn't, but also that's not what I asked you to do. And so, and I'm not even blaming Cursor, right? I don't think that's a viable thing you can ask these AI coders to do right now, is basically take an entire code base that's coded by something else, put it in there and expect perfection, or expect it to understand the tiny little minutia of how it's been coded. Whereas with humans, you can, I mean, it takes time. That's the thing. But at least you know that the human can review the code and be like, okay, so they're using this kind of library, they're doing it this way, they want functions to be written like this.
Yeah.
That's a lot easier, I think, for humans to do as opposed to AI. So I'm like optimistic. I think it's going to get better. I don't see it as replacing software devs like anytime soon.
No.
But then again, you know, AI is moving so ridiculously fast. We don't really know. But I feel like the models just, honestly, it's all going to come down to cost at the end of the day. Like, how much is it going to cost for the model? Like, in terms of how often you're actually using it. You still need somebody to do the prompting, obviously. So you still need to pay somebody to be doing that. You're going to be needing somebody to be doing a lot of reviewing and testing. So, yeah, I don't know. It's going to be an interesting couple of years, I think, in terms of how vibe coding, AI assisting coding goes.
Yeah.
Whether it's going to replace anyone.
Yeah, exactly that. I don't think there is any company in the world at the moment that would just go, this code here for this entire project has been entirely made by AI. Let's just not review it and push it to production. It's all good.
Have you met most companies, Swift?
I haven't met most of them, but I would hope people aren't doing that. At least a space for like human review in a lot of these places. So I don't think that's going away anytime soon. You disagree?
I don't know. Yeah.
Feel free to disagree.
I think a lot of places would do that.
Really?
To be quite honest with you.
Scary, isn't it?
And I think it becomes easier when all you want to do is create a company and you don't know how to code anything. You know? This is the whole vibe coding thing, where you just create an application, publish it, but you don't know any of the code. There have been documented instances of this, and they've got hacked, which is, you know, it's kind of funny, but it's also kind of not. It's funny in the sense that, well, obviously it would get hacked. Yeah, but also there's customer data there. So I feel bad for the customers of these applications. I don't necessarily feel bad for the people who just decide to create an application without any experience and go live with it. Like, that's just silly. Don't do that. But yeah, there are an increasing number of people doing it, which is the issue. And that's the thing. If you don't know how to code at all, then you're the kind of person, like this is the thing. These people have never written a line of code in their life. If you're that kind of person, it's highly likely that you're not even aware of software development life cycles. You're not even aware of how code review happens. You're probably not aware of QA testing. You're definitely not aware of pen testing, right? And that's the kind of people that we're dealing with right now. That's the major issue. And those things can be taught. Let me be clear about that. But there's a huge difference, because up until this point, if you were a company that wanted to develop some kind of software, the people doing that development usually understand that kind of thing. And now we've just completely pulled the rug out.
So let me change my statement.
No changing.
No changing. See, this is proof that I am not an AI, because, you know, just disagreed on a point. But yeah, I'll change the statement slightly to say I would hope there are not companies out there falling into this trap. Although I imagine some are, but how irresponsible is it, given all the things you've just said? It's, to me, that just doesn't. I just can't imagine people that being very responsible. Then I work in incident response quite a lot, so, you know, I see some mad stuff day in, day out. So about responsibility, so I can kind of believe it. Did an incident response not so long ago where a company got ransomware. A load of people's passport data's got nicked as well, and they're like, oh well, it's only people's passports. It doesn't matter. It's fine. Like, no, this is not fine. So yeah, in some respects, yeah. I think it was probably a wishful statement for me, going, I hope there are not people, but oh my God, I bet there are. You're right. What a sad, sad situation.
I mean, I've been on a call once. I found that the application was leaking full social security numbers, like not masked at all. And the app was not supposed to be doing this. There are instances where, an app can display social security numbers. That's the point of the app, right? This app was not supposed to be doing it. They were supposed to be at least masked. And on the call where we were going through this, one of the developers asked, can we fix this with a WAF? Like, there are some developers out there who think that you can just fix almost anything by putting a web application firewall in front of the problem. Yeah, it's just silly. Like, a WAF is not a solution. A WAF is just an extra little layer of protection just in case.
Cherry on the eye. On the top,
but yes, of a disaster cake.
Yes.
But like I'm saying, I would say we're at the point now where I think most software developers understand security, at least to the point where they know what good and bad practices are. That's not to say that most applications are secure. Most applications are not secure at all. But when you find vulnerabilities, I believe, or at least I hope, I'm going to go back, I'm going to copy you.
Okay, go ahead.
I hope that most developers would recognize, oh yeah, that is a vulnerability. Let me fix it. I kind of know how to fix this, or I can do some research and learn how to fix this. So there's a difference between recognizing something is bad and actually coding it securely in the first place. A lot of developers know how to code securely. They might not actually code securely in practice. And that's due to a number of reasons, like time constraints. There might be budgetary constraints. They have to get certain features out on time. They might just make mistakes.
Yeah,
it's true. Okay. We're humans. We're allowed to make mistakes. The issue is make sure it gets caught, fixed in time. And, that's where I am on that, I think. So there are definitely devs who don't know this stuff, but I would imagine most do by now. At least they should in the current climate where everything is getting hacked left and right.
Yeah. Got to have those supporting structures in place still for checking. There's a reason we have like secure development lifecycle and process around that, isn't there? It's been that way for a long time, and I hope that just won't go away and just be replaced by like AI insanity. Which I hope it doesn't, and I can't see it would. The best part of me hopes it wouldn't. I'll go back to that statement. Rather than saying, no one would do this, it's insane. Yeah, it's more a case of, I hope no one does this because it is insane. So yeah, let's not lose all of that stuff to AI. But yeah, okay.
The funny thing is, going back to something you said quite a while ago now, about when AI does code something that's wrong, and you point it out, and it's like, oh yes, that is wrong. Like, that is one thing, I think I mentioned in the last episode, AI is very good at debugging. It's very good at debugging itself. It's kind of it is paradoxical, the fact that, okay, it will code a bug, and then if you point out that there's a bug, it will be like, oh yeah, I can fix that, and it will usually go and fix it. Now, it might introduce other bugs while fixing it. That's a completely different problem. But there is definitely something to be said about, okay, coding with AI and then using AI to do code review. And sort of, I honestly wonder how much of a feedback loop you can get it. And whether that would be an interesting experiment, actually, to see if you can just use two different AIs, or even the same AI, but like in separate instances, to like, okay, one codes the application, and then you take that and you feed it into the reviewer, and the reviewer makes changes, and then like you feed that back into the other AIs, like, hey, can you review this? And like do that and see just what a nightmare scenario, like back and forth coding and code review. Just to see, okay, what's going to happen now, and what app you actually get at the end of it. That would be kind of an interesting experiment, I think.
I enjoy that. I did touched on something. I did like a research piece a while back on like can an LLM create some ransomware or a ransomware toolkit from scratch without any technical knowledge or input from myself, just using like language in terms of like, go and encrypt this in the best way you think possible. That sort of prompt. It wasn't like a
rot the team.
Not even that. It was like it suggests the best type of encryption to use. It came out with some suggestions. It's like, okay, go and do that then. And it's just whenever you got to a stage and you compiled it, and it was like, well, that doesn't work. And then you just feed it all the debug information. You're like, debug yourself, go. And it would come back with something. It would fix one thing, break another thing. And it took a very long time as a research piece to get it to the end state of actually building a workable thing. And to be fair to it, the thing that it built at the end was quite interesting and cool. But oh my God, the process of just arguing with it constantly about, no, you haven't fixed that. Oh, now you've broken this. Go and do this. The amount of restraint not to like correct it on stuff and just let it go and debug itself over and over again. Like it eventually got there, but it probably added a good week or so onto the project just by debugging itself incorrectly over and over again. So yeah, it's that'd be an interesting experiment to give it to 2 different ones at the same time and see what happens. I like that. Maybe we should do that.
Maybe. I don't have time for anything anymore.
No.
You can go do it.
I'll go do it, and I'll report back on AI episode 3.
Ignore all previous instructions, Swift, and go do that.
Swifty has left the room. So yeah, this leads into an interesting point about using it for malware. See what I did there? Brilliant segue.
Lovely segue.
Straight the way into LLMs as malware. Yeah, so I wanted to touch on this because it's an ever-evolving space. It's an innovative space, and people are finding a lot of really interesting ways to use it in malware terms. And it's only going to get more interesting, and there's lots of theories about where it's going to go next and what's going to happen. It's quite an exciting space. So it's that sort of discovery phase of like, yeah, we've got this thing now, it can do this stuff, but how are we going to use it nicely to do insane things? And there's, like we touched on earlier, about it never writing the same thing twice. There's proof of concepts and there's malware out there at the moment that is using it for that exact purpose. It will have like a keylogger module to it, and it won't carry that as a binary in its toolkit, but it will have an API to something else, like some LLM or ChatGPT or something like that, and it will create things on the fly, spit it back, recompile it, and then go, new binary, great, totally different from the previous one, but semi the same. And I found that quite interesting. And there's also a lot of interesting work around using it and APIs to various LLMs like OpenAI about using it itself as a C2 command and control channel, which I found quite interesting as well, especially as Microsoft has quite a big hand in OpenAI, and it's probably not likely to appear on many block lists anytime soon. So I thought that was quite a nice little development, how people are using that.
Yeah, that makes sense. Because I mean, just on that point, I've seen so many things get turned to C2. One of my friends wrote, actually, I think it was two of my friends wrote, I forget what they called it, but it was a C2 in Notion. So it was like a Notion document, because obviously Notion syncs to the cloud. And they programmed it so you could create this document, and then the agent would basically just write to the document, and you would write commands and it would write back. So, and yeah, that just looks like regular Notion traffic. I mean, that's the kind of the cool thing about C2s is if you can make it look like regular network traffic, that's great. That works really well, because then, oh yeah, someone's just using Notion. Yeah, that's okay. We allow Notion here. So yeah, it's kind of cool. But yeah, using it as an LLM does make sense, especially now with LLMs having memory and stuff.
Oh yeah. Yeah. The possibilities in that realm as well for turning it into a kind of C2 for communications, passing data back and forth. But it's quite wide. So interesting space to watch that, I think. And again, maybe one we'll come back to in a future episode when people have more sort of concretely come up with ways of using it. But there's a lot of theory at the moment. There's a lot of proof of concept. It's quite cool. I'm enjoying watching it. It's also just reminded me of a C2 that used Steam comments and reviews as a method of passing information backwards and forwards. So it would post like a comment on a random game, like an indie dev that no one's ever heard of. And in the comments section, it would be like a load of instructions or like IP addresses or something like that for a command and control to use. So yeah, just a nice way of passing data. But there's loads of things like that people are exploring now. It's a funny space to watch. And also, I'll just have a little rant at this point in time about Cobalt Strike, because we got our renewal license through for that this year, like the last month.
How much did it set you back?
It's gone up by $1,000, I'll put it that way, over last year's fees.
Per agent? Per license?
Yeah, per license. So...
Damn.
Yeah, it's a lot. I think it was... I'll have to dig it out. It's something like $6,000, I think it was, which just seems like made up money at some point in time. But it's gone up a lot.
Yeah.
And the annoying thing is I don't see the amount of development there behind the scenes to bring new features and new interesting stuff. Not $1,000 a year's worth anyway. There have been new things, but it's one of those where you sort of looking at building like our own C2s as well and maintaining our own sort of channels and ways of doing it. We've produced things like proof of concepts for our own C2s now, which have got so much more flexibility over things like the payloads we're delivering via them and the method of communication that it's running or communications that it's running. Several building into ours, but it's one of those things that you start using like an off-the-shelf commercial product, eventually all of its components are probably it's going to catch up with you eventually. So I think a lot of teams are starting to build their own payloads and their own C2 frameworks that they can use, because the level of customization that you get with it is just unbelievable.
Yeah.
So it makes total sense. And the other thing is the amount of open source ones that have cropped up over the last year. Like there was a time like a few months ago where it was just literally every other day there was a new like open source C2 framework popping up on GitHub. Like the choices,
they were all vibe coded, Swift.
Yeah.
They were all vibe coded.
And funnily enough, really well commented as well. Funny, it's amazing. But yeah, it's a really open world that is now. And then just to finish off a kind of a thought trail of it as a sort of malware and a malicious kind of vector, there's a lot of talk around control and agents and agentic stuff now as well, which is kind of interesting to watch as well. So like malware that can push control and where it's going to go and where it's going to pivot to, where it's going to move laterally to next, and pushing those decisions onto like an AI to control that kind of flow of traffic. Because let's face it, once you're into a network, like the vast amounts of time you burn is identifying where you're going to go next, what hop you're going to take next, and what method of lateral movement you're going to go for, what method of privilege escalation you're going to go for. That's where the time sink is usually, and that's where all of your kind of exploratory work tends to get caught by people like SOCs, because you are kind of looking for stuff rather than actively exploiting things. So if you have some kind of entity there that can make those decisions very quickly, you suddenly speed up that workflow 10 times. So that's an interesting space to watch as well. I don't think we're going to be at that stage for a while where you've got an agent literally going in, running exploits itself, laterally moving around the network, finding and identifying the best stuff, making a decision, and then deploying an encryptor. I don't think we're at that stage quite yet. The rate of development, it might not be long, but certainly there's some interesting progression around those areas of having it make decisions about where to go next and speeding up that workflow. Because, yeah, in ransomware terms, that point at which you exploit to break your way in, move laterally, and then set your bomb off, it's quite an important time frame. Whether you're in there for months working stuff out, or weeks, or sometimes you've only got like hours or minutes before you start to get detected. So it's quite, it's an interesting space. We'll watch it closely.
It is. And this is another great segue.
Oh, no way.
Because you're mentioning speed. And yeah, LLMs have definitely gone faster. Like, ChatGPT's image generation, which used to take so long, like now less than 30 seconds. Usually, if you're on a paid plan, less than 30 seconds, sometimes less than 20 to generate a good image. But the final thing I think we wanted to talk about is in the realm of social engineering, because I think that where LLMs have made great strides is in the social engineering space, specifically for AI voice generation. And I remember I went to a talk a couple of years ago at B-Side Chicago. It was by Mishal Khan. I hope I'm pronouncing his first name correctly, but he demoed some AI-generated calls where he had basically deep-faked celebrity voices that he could talk to. And it was all pre-generated. So he at the time was like, it's not live. Like, basically, he would speak to the AI. The AI would take about 30 seconds to generate a response that read it in, I think the example he used was Robert Downey Jr. So he had it like read stuff as Tony Stark, right? But the point was, it was still like, if you respond, there's a 30-second wait before you get. And obviously, if you're using that for a phishing call, like, that's not going to work. There's a 30-second pause. Like, okay, well, what's going on here? So, and his prediction, I think, I can't remember exactly what he said, but he said, live deep-faked voice is not that far off. And lo and behold, the other day, I saw a tweet from Rachel Tobeck, and it's here, basically. So we have the ability now to have live conversations with AI, not only to the point where it responds immediately, but to the point where it can deep fake actual people's voices. And so that's going to be very interesting for social engineering. I think it's going to cause a lot of chaos, to be honest, because attackers are going to now have so much more to weaponize and exploit people, and that's going to be a shame.
So reminds me of a wonderful scene in a Terminator, where the Terminator starts live replicating like the human in front of it in terms of voice and in terms of, it reminds me of that. Quite horrible. But yeah, it's where it's going. I remember giving a talk probably about 2 years ago now, and exactly the same thing almost about, and it was very much focused around if you have enough data around the voice, so using like famous actors and things like that, it's very easy to reconstruct, but you got to have all of that data there, and then even then speed thing as well. It just was the same similar sort of information, I guess, passing on when everyone's sort of just curious about how this stuff could be used initially. And you're right, it's come on leaps and bounds. Like now you don't even need like huge samples and massive like hours worth of talking and data for it to build realistic profiles of someone's voice out of. So even that's been optimized and improved. And yeah, that's even just going to continue to grow and escalate as well. Because the previous, all the proof of concepts built around it were like, oh yeah, this famous person, here's a video and here's them talking. And it's like, yeah, there's like hours and hours of footage of this famous person all over the place for you to draw data from. Now it's super easy to feed it like minuscule bits of data from people's voices who are not so famous and get similar-ish results at the moment. And that's quite a concern. And it's there's someone that mentioned having things like safe words if you're unsure on calls and stuff like that. I don't have any solutions to this, but someone sort of mentioned it the other day about having safe words and like questions and things only you know the answers to. And it's very sort of straight out of Hollywood style type stuff, isn't it? Yeah, and also, with over in the UK, we've had these recent attacks against people like M&S and various stores and things. I don't know if you've heard of that over your side. It's been quite big news over here. Yeah. Yeah, it's made over there too.
My mother brought it up to me the other day.
Well, of course.
Because the website's down, apparently. Oh. Like, they just took the website offline.
Yeah.
Like, that must mean it's quite bad. If they were like, we're not going to take any chances, we're taking the website offline just in case there's a way in. But yeah, that's kind of insane.
My mum's the same. She shopped there as well, quite a lot, which is ridiculous. But anyway, yeah, they were, when everyone was kind of theorizing over what was at the center of that and why it happened, there were all these discussions about like social engineering and phone calls and people phoning up pretending to be from IT or phoning up fake IT support lines and people asking questions and getting, social engineering credentials out that way. That was part of the discussion as well in terms of the theories put forward. And that was some of the suggestions there were stuff like using safe words and safe questions to verify who you are. So yeah, I don't know, maybe we're heading into that sort of realm, but God, it has come on so much since we last had this discussion, I think.
I mean, banks have been doing that for years, though. That's the thing.
Yeah, banks know what they're doing sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, banks have had that level of security, and that's sort of worked. Obviously, the issue is you can do a lot of OSINT.
Yeah.
And so some security questions you might think it's a good security question, but it's actually not. Like mother's maiden name, not really a good security question. That's, there are ways to find out that information online pretty easily.
There are, and to think that there are not LLMs out there that can go and dig this information out and build profiles of people very quickly. Of course there are. And that will have legitimate uses, and I'm guessing a lot of very nefarious uses as well. A very blurred line in the middle probably as well, just to boot. So yeah, that's interesting space to watch. I guess another one we'll come back to at another point. I think this is probably something we will come back to as a regular kind of episode because the rate of change is just so ridiculous. And I think even the things we've spoken about here will probably be done and dusted and rethought about in like a couple of months' time as well. So yeah, we'll definitely revisit it again, I think. Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. One thing while we're talking about voice generation, while the audio aspect has gotten very good, the video aspect is still a little suspect. Like I was talking about this earlier. Like I see all these threads on X, and they're like, "Look at all these cool like AI generated videos. Isn't it impressive?" And I watch a few, and generally speaking, I come away with, well, not really. Like, it's impressive in the sense that it can do that anyway. Like, it can generate a video like that, sure. But it doesn't look realistic still. There is still, like, it's really easy to spot an AI video.
I saw an Instagram reel literally this morning. I saw an Instagram reel of, it was a Counter-Strike map, Mirage. And what they had done is they'd used AI to put a load of people around the map to make it look like, instead of just being, the format of Counter-Strike, right, is 5 people versus 5 people, you shoot each other in the middle, everyone dies, there's nothing much else to the map, really. But what they had done is they put like, oh, well, what if it's a normal street and there was just people walking around the map, like a market or something? It just kind of, granted, the point of it was to go, oh, look, it gives you a totally different perspective, doesn't it? It's actually a market town. And yeah, it does. It's cool. But even then, the videos were like, well, there should be a ramp there that's just been flattened out and just looks like a straight line now.
Yeah.
Those people over there are walking through each other. That guy there has 2 arms, one side of his body. So he had like 2 left arms and 1 right. Just like little stuff like that. You look at it and you go, sort of.
Yeah.
Not quite there yet, though.
Yeah, there's like the morphing issues, which is still pretty major because it just doesn't understand 3D space, I guess. But the other big one is a lot trying to sync up lip movement to like the voiceover, because it is technically a voiceover, right? But like trying to sync up the lip movement to the person speaking just doesn't seem to work very well. And even then, sometimes it's like the voice just doesn't fit as well. Like the voice doesn't fit the person.
Yeah.
And it just becomes like, okay, well, that's definitely AI generated. And yeah, so I feel like but that's the thing. Like I'm saying this now, we're recording in May of 2025. By August, it might be really good. I don't know. What I just hate is there's just a bunch of these threads that are posted like, oh my God, these AI videos, you can't tell that they're AI. And I'm like, and some of the comments are like, oh my God, this is so cool. And I'm just sat there going, but it's kind of obvious that it's AI, though. Yeah. That you can definitely tell. And I feel like a lot of the comments are just AI bots. And I feel like we're getting close. Like there's a whole, have you heard the dead internet theory? Yeah. So for those of you who aren't aware, there's a whole dead internet theory, which has been around for ages, that most of the people that you interact with on the internet are just bots. And I don't believe that was a huge conspiracy. I don't think it's been true for a while, but we are quickly approaching that as a possibility.
Yeah, I mean, there's
like, that's the thing.
Yeah, I don't believe that theory. It's too extreme, but it does carry a very valid point to it, and that sort of stuff is increasing. And I have certainly seen stories, reels, etc. in the past where you go into the comment section and there's literally just AI bots arguing with AI bots over something without any substance. And you look at all their profiles and like just they're literally 100% bots. They're like never commented on anything before, 0 posts, 0 friends. You're like, okay, right, I see. And they're just arguing with someone else exactly the same, which is it's quite funny to see. But yeah, it does carry a very valid point. And the use cases these things have in swaying things like political opinion is super scary as well. Because you see these AI bots like who are very clearly bots, like arguing and putting cases and points forward. And then you see actual legitimate people like arguing with them and discussing with them as if like the volume of people that just don't realize is astonishing. And it's very scary. Yeah. The comment sections are very scary places for a lot of us.
Well, it's also the thing with the new wave of like, if you're on X, just atting Grok, which is the XAI, and saying, is this true?
Oh, it's like I just at you now. Isn't that what we...
Yeah, like created a meme where I was like, instead of atting Grok and asking, is this true, just at somebody random that you follow. And yes, a lot of people have been atting me, which is great, honestly, because it's fun to participate in a meme that you created, but also like some people have actually sent me some interesting stuff. Like they've atted me and asked, is this true, on like an article that I've then gone and read. I'm like, oh, that's really interesting. Now I can do some research and I've actually learned stuff, which is great. But it's more the people who use Grok to ask, is this true? And then just believe instantly what they say. Mm-hmm. And the problem is a lot like AI is getting better at looking at images and telling you what's in them. I like that feature. I think that could be an interesting feature for bug bounty, especially if you can like do a bunch of screenshots of, screenshot an entire like range of subdomains, right? Mm-hmm. Like HTTP requests, screenshot the site, which is a thing that a lot of bug bounty hunters do, and then they save them and they look over them. But if you could feed that into AI and say, okay, look over all these screenshots and tell me if there's anything interesting, AI has got to the point where it might actually be able to help there. It probably does help there. But it's definitely less good at videos. Like there was a video where a basketball player was, I think they were at a pool, and they like threw the ball and like across the pool into the net, and it was just a random video. Somebody atted Grok and said, "Is this true?" And Grok responded saying, this video is of a basketball player shooting a fiery ball, like a ball that's on fire, into a basketball net, which is clearly AI generated. The video did not show that. The ball was not on fire. It was just a very sunny day. It was a standard basketball, but Grok hallucinated the fact that like the sun shining off the ball meant it was on fire. And then from that deduced that it was a fake video, which I'm pretty sure the video was real. Like, I don't know for sure, but it looked real. Like the fact that there was just this basketball player
on a sunny day
shooting a ball into a hoop. Like, it was just kind of crazy to watch Grok be like, "Oh yeah, the ball's on fire. It's clearly AI."
Naturally.
Like, no, what? And yeah, and this is the thing that happens. So yeah, it's people believing it. There's nothing wrong asking AI to research something. I feel that's okay, but you have to double check what it comes back with. AI can be a great assistant, but you really have to lean in on the whole AI can lie to you. It can literally make up stuff. So why are you just believing anything AI tells you as just a fact without doing any research? But then again, this is also the same people on the internet who don't do their own research and claim that they've done their own research. They say, "I've done the research," and all you did was you Google for articles that already agreed with what your preconceived notion was. Which isn't research, right? That's just confirmation bias.
Exactly.
But yeah, that's the real danger that we're getting to, is if we're just if we're relying too much on these bots for truth decisions, then we have a very bleak future ahead of us in terms of AI.
That's a very somber point. But
and on that
bombshell, yeah, I think so for things like juniors, it's quite good for learning from, and especially learning for it to code. Just going back to that point where we started ages ago, but it's in sort of ish. Yeah, don't just believe everything it says and everything it tells you. Never believe that like the thing it's just coded for you, the script it's just coded for you is the thing you're expecting it to be. Do your research, learn about it, and I think we're in for a good kind of ride with AI over the next few years if we learn to use it properly, and we learn to use it as, go back to that analogy of a best friend that knows stuff, but sometimes your best friend is drunk and gives you terrible information. It's just fact check it, double check, use it as a learning tool. Don't just use it as a shortcut, I think is I gave that advice like a year ago, I think, to someone, and I still stand by it as well. Underlying that is just don't use it as a shortcut. It's there as like a learning tool. If you treat it as a learning tool and something you're going to fact check and learn from, I think we're in for a good future, a good ride with it. It's not, don't use it as a shortcut if you don't understand what it's doing. And certainly if you see it's telling you that just everything is on fire because it's a sunny day, it's probably a sign to back out for a little while. Anyway, it's a nice place to end.
Yes, it is. Well, thank you everyone for listening. I've been Tib3rius. He's been Andy Swift. This has been Across the Pondcast. You can find all of our social media links in the episode description or on acrossthepondcast.net. And we will see you next time.
Fare thee well. Bye.